The U.S. faces a number of significant challenges. Wages have been stagnant for many workers for over 4 decades. We have near record levels of economic inequality. We have huge racial and gender divides, social breakdown, decline in trust, partisan polarization, and the really weakening democracy. And I felt that stronger unions could help us solve those problems. Unions, in my view, are a public good. They provide benefits for all of society, a democracy that works, an economy that works for people. But the thing about public goods is you get less of them unless you support them in many different ways.
I think what David does is argue for how do we rewrite the rules in every way we can to make sure that workers get a seat at the table, especially workers that have been excluded.
I think that 3 core things were needed to strengthen the labor movement to really address America's challenges. And the first was about rights. The second thing I felt we needed were incentives for workers to join unions. And the last thing that I felt was we needed to improve the way we bargain.
Without a strong labor movement, we don't have a strong democracy, period. And there's evidence around the world on that. But I want to talk about race in America for a minute, because it is at the core, I think, of why we have such a weaker labor movement than in other places.
The labor movement represents more people of color than all of the other organizations that are specifically about people of color.
We're not just a multiracial movement. We are called to create cross-racial solidarity, which means that every worker, depending on their racial identity, has to understand how their economic condition has been impacted by systemic racism in the US and corporate power, and how those two things intersect with each other to hold wages and benefits down, to impact education and housing and transportation and every institution in our country. All kinds of workers in the service and care economy need an intervention like Ford, GM, and Chrysler were to auto in the last century. Like Ford made a deal, GM and Chrysler had to match it. That created a form of sectoral bargaining that was frankly not written into law, but became the practice of the auto companies as a way to get their production done. And so that's the same imagination we need in the 21st century for the current workforce.
And I felt we needed to bargain at a broader level, which people tend to call sectoral bargaining or broad-based bargaining. And that, is good in a lot of ways. It raises wages for more workers. It raises inequality more. It also tends to lead to higher productivity in the economy and has a bunch of other positive features.
David's work is kind of creating a North Star for how we expand, how we fight to increase workers' power in the economy and democracy.